Good morning. I just dropped my son off at the bus. I'm walking back down towards the house and wanted to share a little bit more about my decision to leave Facebook and Instagram. I emailed my email community a few days ago and just mentioned it, and a number of people replied asking for a little bit more info about how it's gone. So I thought I'd share with you a little bit of that story. I want to tell you how I was using Facebook and Instagram, just to give you a little bit of context, why I decided to leave, and how it's been since then. So, Facebook, I was not using so much personally, in the sense that I wasn't using my personal feed a lot. Sometimes I'd post like my brother's music video or a song that I really liked. But I wasn't posting very much personal stuff. And I wasn't like a big scroller through the activity feed. Sometimes just I would, but the algorithm never really gave me what I wanted to see anyway. What I did love about Facebook was I was in a number of groups that I really enjoyed. Professionally, personally, I think Facebook has done an incredible job creating spaces where people of similar interests can gather and communicate. I also loved using Facebook for my network, meaning, I don't know about you, but I have connections on Facebook from all different parts of my life. And I know that each one of those people has connections in all parts of their life. So let's say I knew someone who wanted to talk to retired volleyball players. I knew that I could probably go onto my personal Facebook feed, say, do I know any retired volleyball players, or do you know someone you could tag? And there would be responses there. And then I could create that introduction. So I really loved being able to experiment with it in that way. There were also a few people who I'm only in touch with through Facebook Messenger that I just had this awareness of oh, how am I going to find them? On Instagram was more of a creative outlet for me. I have an artistic side to my personality. And if you followed me on Instagram, I really have always loved drawing out little notes, sketching out notes, taking pictures of them, putting filters on it. I really enjoyed using Instagram stories as a public-facing workshop for new ideas that I had. It just felt like a first stop when I was inspired. I'm just going to go talk about it on my stories. And if it helps someone, great. But it was like this outlet for me that I really enjoyed turning to. I also enjoyed Instagram for the one-on-one connections that I could make. So I didn't have a ton of followers on my work account, but whenever someone would follow me, I would take that opportunity to say hi directly, send them a message, get to know them better. And I also liked promoting people on Instagram. So if there was someone I work with or just someone I know who was running a project or sharing something new, I enjoyed being able to share those on my stories. But neither one of those places was I using very strategically. I am not a big social media strategy person. It was more a space, and Instagram in particular for my work, for me to shine my light and to share my work and my point of view and to connect with people. And it was a very slow and steady thing. Again, I wasn't trying to build a following there. So those are two of the reasons, or that was how I was using both of those spaces. Why I decided to leave was a combination of a lot of things. First of all, personally, I just noticed that some habits were developing that I didn't like. Those platforms are designed to keep our attention. That's how they are designed. I believe this. They're designed to hold on to our attention, and it was working. I would check Instagram when I woke up in the morning. I would, sit down at my laptop and just hop over to Facebook. If I was trying to write something like an article or an email to a group of people that I needed to think about, any pause in my thinking, I would want to fill. And so I would just go and look in those places. I'm reading this book called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman, and there were a couple of quotes in there that really jumped out at me. And one of them was our lives are the sum total of everything we pay attention to, right? When we look back on our lives, we are going to remember the things we were paying attention to in those moments. And I just was oh God, are these the spaces I want to be giving my attention to? The people in those spaces I like thinking about, but that really landed with me. I also really saw it as kind of an adventure. I have I have an issue with the story, or had an issue that like, I need these spaces as part of my work. Like, well, what am I going to do if I'm not on Facebook and Instagram? And the fact that I had to ask myself that question, that it felt like a big deal. You know, people would say to me like, gosh, it was such a bold move. I'm like, oh, that we feel it has its clutches on us so deeply that the idea of leaving is like warrants a video like this really just bugged me. I wanted to rebel against that. And on this other level, I just didn't want to support the company anymore. I didn't want to support Facebook, which also owns Instagram. And, you know, a couple of people suggested, well, why don't you just create like a burner account? Then you don't have a personal feed, but you can still be a part of the groups, right? Because how do I stay in these groups? And I just said, you know what? That doesn't solve the problem for me. That the habit will still be fed and I will still be supporting the company. And I don't want to anymore for many reasons, which I can tell you about in another time. So I did it. I was like, and I did it with the belief that I was going to find another way. I am an activator. I also value adventure and kind of creativity and curiosity. So a part of me was like, what am I going to do? You know, I know some others need more of a plan before they step away. I was like, I'm not going to figure out my plan until, like, I'm going to figure out my plan after the fact. Or I'm going to see what emerges after the fact. I didn't have a plan. I just knew and trusted that the only way to figure out what I was going to do without it was to leave. This phrase kept going through my head of like, be like water, you know, water finds its way no matter what. And sometimes water like digs a groove and just stays in that groove. And the only way for that water to find another way is to block it. And once you block it, that's when you start to see new little rivulets forming. And I just thought, I got to block it. But I know it's going to find its way. My creativity is going to find its way. My relator, my desire to connect, it's going to find other ways. Let me just shut this door first. So that happened a couple of weeks ago. I was with a friend when we finally just decided to deactivate. It's not as big a deal as you think it is. Like, you could go deactivate right now and reactivate in an hour. So if you're thinking about this experiment, it's not a difficult one and you can always go back. That said, they don't make it particularly easy. First, you have to find like the right button. And then once you start clicking it, they just do all these like, are you sure? And what about this? And do this pull down menu. They definitely do not want you to leave. Again, which is another reason why we need to rebel against it if you want to. And it feels really, really good. It feels really good. There are moments when I wish I was still in some of those Facebook groups, like where when I have a question or I just want some feedback or a referral, I'll be like, oh, I wish I could go there. But I am keeping myself open to other ways of finding that information. I am finding new ways to connect with people in more, just in deeper ways. I lean more on Voxer, which is a walkie-talkie app that I love. And I invite you to send me a Vox message anytime if you'd like to say hi. I've sent more snail mail. I am giving more time to emails that I want to respond to. And I just find like there are so many people, amazing people who I already know. You know, I tell the coaches I work with, I'm like, tend to the garden you've already planted. I have a beautiful garden with incredible people. And I really just want to keep my attention on the relationships that I already have and see what emerges from there. As far as different platforms that I'm exploring, I'm still on YouTube. I really enjoy showing up on video and have thought about using YouTube more intentionally, maybe like video blogging, just using it as these kind of live journals and connection points with you. I invite you to comment below. I will be there to respond. I do have a Twitter account, and I am currently part of actually a class that I'm taking, a community that I'm in that's off of social media, but I'm working on the next evolution of my UMAP for Coaches course. And I'm in just this incredible group of like very creative, divergent thinkers. And a lot of them are on Twitter and using it very intentionally. And I thought, like, is that a place maybe I could explore more? But again, it also has its problems, and it honestly feels like a new language to learn. So we shall see. You tell me, are you on Twitter? Let me know. I have a LinkedIn account. I'm not as energized to dive back into LinkedIn, but I know it is a place. There's some incredible people there who I really love, who spend time there. It is a place to build connection, and I could revisit that. And on kind of this, what hasn't changed, or what I've also noticed, this has been a very interesting personally, is that some of those habits that I had still exist, even though the medium is gone. So the metaphor I came up with is, if at 5 o'clock every night you eat a bag of Doritos and you decide, you know what, I don't want any more Doritos anymore. At 5 o'clock the next night, you're still going to want to eat something salty and awesome. So maybe you'll just start eating Fritos, which are also great. It's kind of like that. Like, even though I don't have Facebook and Instagram, that kind of unconscious pull to distraction is still there, and it sometimes gets filled with other things like particular websites or other platforms where people are communicating. And so that has come into sharp relief, that while Instagram and Facebook and many of these other places are designed to keep your attention, that habit of letting your attention leak is very, very sticky. And so I'm still working on that. And one other thing I just wanted to say too, what really helped me make that decision was seeing other people who are successful and doing really amazing things and affecting change and reaching people who don't use social media. I really enjoyed watching those TED Talks and reading those blog posts from people who are like, I'm not there and everything's fine. That was great. I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to be there and everything will be fine. And it is. It's great. Everything's fine. And I hope this story has been helpful. I will keep you posted. Thank you for being here and for watching. I invite all of your comments and questions and commentary below. This too can be a connection space. And I hope you're doing well. Have a wonderful week ahead.